Alright, quick update on the graph, ticker symbol GRT. So, the first thing I want to highlight is this massive trend line. We've been in a falling wedge for a very long period in time. Why do I want to highlight this specific trend line? Because when we do zoom into the lower time frames, we are currently residing at this trend line. We've got a big decision to make, and what are the momentum indicators saying? They're starting to flip back down to the downside. Looking at the squeeze bomb, this is already starting to capitulate, looking like it wants to head down into its next bearish phase. What do we also have playing out on the squeeze bomb? We've got a high and a lower high, which is really not a good signal. Why is this not a good signal? Well, let's look at it to the inverse. What happened when you had a high, or should I say, because this is on the inverse, this is a low and then a higher low, but bear in mind you would flip that on its head because this is the bearish momentum and this is the bullish momentum. What happened when you had, let's just call it a lower high to make it simple, on the bearish momentum? What you did is, after you had this lower high, you started to move back to the upside. So it's going to be the exact same on the flip side. We are running out of momentum and we are running into a very crucial range that we would absolutely need to flip if you do want this to break remotely bullish. Now, one other thing I would like to highlight, depending on how you want to draw this, because you can draw something like this. This fits beautifully, really. And what you will notice with this is this was a triangle pattern playing out. We were converging, right? Overshot it a bit. We were converging between these lines, and boom, you had a mass capitulation. You back tested it, back tested this downtrending level of resistance, and now with the momentum indicators making lower highs and tipping to the downside, I think we should start hedging ourselves for that next move back down. I would also like to say, coming into these regions, volume is relatively stagnant. We really don't have a high amount of bulls or bears stepping into the market structure. But looking at the daily time frame, we've also run into the daily EMA ribbons, and I don't want to go through, all of this market structure. You can eyeball it and you see basically every single time we come up into this, apart from the one time we had a fake out, we come into it, get rejected, have a high breakdown, lower high breakdown, lower high breakdown, lower high breakdown, lower high, lower high, lower high. So the market structure seems fairly obvious to me. Let's wrap up the video talking about what the MACD is doing at this moment in time. MACD on the daily time frame, still heading up, still having a little bit of a momentum shift as we do come back up to this previous area of resistance. But if we switch over to the lower time frames, what you will see is, just like our other momentum indicator, which is the squeeze bomb, you're starting to see bricking back down to the downside. You've also topped out, you've broken back below the previous low, and you're having a very nasty shift back down on the MACD. Pair this with the other momentum indicators we have, pair this with the moving averages, and it's just really not looking too good for the graph right now. So the graph, this could definitely be something that I'd be interested in picking up as we do capitulate to much lower price targets, once we do, in my opinion, come down for the final leg of the bear market. And it's the same for everything. Most altcoins look like they want to come down. Look at Bitcoin, the squeeze bomb, our momentum indicators heading down. We're running out of momentum as we do come to the bottom of this trend. The daily, the 4 hourly MACD is also starting to head to the downside after making a high, lower high, lower high. So it's pretty clear to me what's going on right now. I think all of these indicators, OBV as well, high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, all of these are just forming lower high structures. And, once again, just like with Bitcoin, just like with the altcoins, I think GRT is getting ready for a big flush back down to the downside. So keep your eyes on this previous high around about 12.5 cent. You'd really want to take that out before, we could even be short-term bullish. And even if we do head back above there, I would be thinking this would be a fake out before the final leg back down. So as I think we're breaking down, I should give you my first price target. Right off the bat, we've got a 1.618 down here at 6.8 cent. What is the market cap of the graph saying? So if we do look at the graph, this is a fairly high ranking cryptocurrency, sitting at around about $750 million, which is very high for what the graph is. I actually do like the project, the graph. I've read the white paper, I've done my research on this. I was actually invested in the graph like years ago. I think this was one of the first cryptos that I started to pick up over on Coinbase. Maybe I was exaggerating by saying years ago. When did the graph GRT release? Because it feels like much longer than a year ago when I started to pick this up. And yes, it was. The graph chain was back in 2017. So I do remember holding this over on Coinbase. You know, this is definitely one of the slightly more OG cryptocurrencies. So that being said, I mean, it's looking okay in the higher time frames. Like I would assume that this would do somewhat well coming into the next bull run, but right off the bat, you know, higher time frames in terms of the market structure of this bear market, it does look like we are going to be moving a lot lower before we start, you know, picking that juice back up to the upside. So bear in mind, you know, this move down to 67 cent. This is still rather conservative. In fact, we could probably find a slightly more brutal 1.618, which would make a little bit more sense. I would call down here at 6 cent a more likely price target to hit. So with that being said, 6 cent is my price target. This is a 47.5% drop. I would currently be predicting for over on the graph. That is all I've got for you today. As always, Cowboy out. Peace.